Hi, Karate Illuminati, this is Noah, and today I'd like to go through a bit of a reaction to Jesse Enkamp's latest video, which he called Bunkai Misconception. And in this video, he essentially explains that, first of all, that for the most part, when people are learning karate, they're, learning a sequence of movements, and they're not really given a good explanation of what those movements are for.
So we have tons of solo movements that we do in karate all the time, and some of them look very strange or different from each other. Like we could have this move or this move or this move, and usually we don't really know exactly what they mean. We just repeat what our instructor tells us, and then in a few years we will teach it to somebody else, and the circle continues. So whenever you ask an instructor to explain the meaning of a movement, they will usually not give you a clear answer, because there are many meanings of a movement.
Personally, I tend to believe that if your instructor can't give you a good explanation of what the movements in the kata are for, and that's something that you want to learn, then you are not in the right dojo. This is obviously a martial art where a lot of different people with a lot of different goals can all still get what they want out of it. But if your goal is to learn, practical fighting techniques and have that be something that's tied into everything you do, tied into the kata that you're learning, then your instructor needs to be able to give you that. So if you're getting instruction that doesn't include practical kata application, or even any application in some cases, then obviously you're not in the right place for you. So something that you may want to consider is finding another school to learn at. But beyond that, that is a kind of a generalized truth that does happen quite frequently. People will learn the movements of kata, and they'll be told that it's, to develop, body awareness and control of your body, and that builds muscle memory for fighting, except that there's no actual fighting techniques in the things, which doesn't make any sense. So there are some odd statements about kata out there. But from there, he goes on to explain that for the most part, because original applications have been lost, which is largely but not entirely true. There are a lot of more original applications. Of course, it's been so long since the kata were invented that it is pretty well impossible to say what the original intent was. But we do have a good number of, at least classical examples that we know came from a certain time period or before, to give us sort of a guideline. So we have some good examples. Some of these can be found in your big styles. Some of them get passed down in Gojuru and Uechiru and Shorinryu and all sorts of the styles. And then you can find some that are in, Motobu Udundi or Kishimoto-di. But for the most part, I would say that a lot of the kata application has been lost, and so people have been really working on trying to rediscover that in a variety of ways. Some of it is researching the roots of things, going back to China, for example, the way Jesse did, or reverse engineering things based on solid combative principles. There's a lot of ways to go about it. But what it boils down to is that for the most part, when you're doing these types of investigations into the applications of kata, you come up with a variety of different applications that can all fit the same movement or posture.
See, in the evolution of karate, the original functional application of these different solo techniques has been lost in the sands of time. So usually you will hear something like, oh, this move could mean this, this, or this. Or that move could mean one of 5 different things. Because we don't really know, right? So in karate, you usually hear that one solo move has many functional applications, or bunkai.
So that's something that he points out is, every movement has multiple meanings, multiple interpretations, multiple applications. And what he says is that when he went to China, it was made clear to him that the opposite was true, that rather than every movement having multiple applications, every application has multiple solo interpretations.
You see, I think we put the cart before the horse in the karate world, because something that I discovered when I went to China was the exact opposite. Meaning, it's not that one solo technique has multiple bunkai. It is the opposite. One bunkai has multiple solo expressions.
And personally, I suspect he probably knew that before he went to China, but it fits his video series better this way. But the idea that one movement can have many applications, and the idea that one application can have many solo interpretations, those are not mutually exclusive ideas, and they pretty much tie hand in hand. They're flip sides of the same coin. This is something that my instructor talked about pretty frequently. If you are looking at kata from a historical perspective, many of these kata came from different people. Some of them came from different countries. So it would make sense that not all of them are going to be expressing things in the exact same way. You know, you've got somebody who's taller, somebody who's shorter, somebody who likes a certain type of technique, somebody who is particularly good at doing something in a specific way. They're going to teach to that method that fits them the best, or perhaps that fits their students the best. And for some people, that is going to change the expression of a technique. So even though originally this person who developed this kata may have had one application for each movement intended, he may have taught it slightly differently to different people because, well, you're short, so you need to be lifting this up higher. You're tall, so you need to lift not as high. You need to be lower. You know, things like this are going to come up as part of the natural teaching process. You're going to have to make adjustments to the techniques. And of course, that will kind of evolve into different versions of a kata, even if you tried to teach the same thing to multiple people. But that doesn't mean that all of those movements don't also have multiple applications of their own. You know, when it comes right down to it, all of the movements that you're doing in kata are just that, movements. All the postures are just postures. What you use them for is widely variable. You know, when it comes to this movement, for example, that's in most versions of Naihanchi, what you do with that, regardless of its intent originally, is going to change based on positioning of the opponent, positioning of yourself, angle of attack, points of contact, the types of resistance being provided. There are so many different variables that you can play with in this. Even, you know, how the whole thing starts. If you want to have it go from, you know, the technique beforehand, or if you want to do it in isolation, or if you want to connect it perhaps to some other technique. Because the kata is just a series of templates, so you can mix and match and move things around as you see fit and as necessary for the situation. So it's not wrong to say that every movement or posture in kata has multiple applications. And it's also not wrong to say that every application has multiple solo interpretations. Those are both true, because anytime you're looking at how the human body works, you are going to have a lot of things that are similar and a lot of things that are going to vary by person. So just something for everybody to think about and consider, that these two ideas almost have to go hand in hand. You know, the whole reason that you're going to get multiple interpretations of an application in solo form is because of all the variances in the way people's bodies are built and the way that they move and the way that they prefer to do things. That's the exact same thing that's going to cause variances in how the movements can be applied. So you get the best of both worlds when you look at it that way.